the entire team were left dumbstruck. Even the likes of Bardock, who was usually unflappable in moments like these, was finding it hard to process the enormity of this situation. Sure, in Saiyan Parlor, this would have been a joyous time. Gine had had her first takedown. But this wasn't a joyous time. This was one of their own we're talking about here. And not only that, it was a Saiyan elite being offed by a woman, a low-class warrior woman. This would cause waves throughout the entire upper echelons of Saiyan society. Sure, the grunts wouldn't care. In fact, they'd think it would be impressive, but they knew that wouldn't be for everyone. The truth was that Napa was dead. Gine had offed him, and now they had to deal with the potential ramifications of her desperate action. However, Selipa was ready to start something. How could you? You killed him! She stomped over to Gine, getting back up from the floor, who was distracted by her shocking act rather than the woman of the man she had slain. Selipa then grabbed her hair, throwing her to the ground now. That strength that Gine had just demonstrated on Napa in defending herself against that beast, seemingly deserting her. Do you have any idea what you have done? Selipa shrieked at the crumpled up and contorted, miserable, crying frame of Gine. The former kicked her in the stomach out of sheer frustration. I've had enough of you. You're a problem. You've always have been. I'm gonna rip you apart. She too was overcome with emotion, just like Gine was. However, Bardock and Toma were quick to stop this from escalating any further. There would be no more death here. Bardock grabbed Gine and helped her up, whereas Toma grabbed Selipa and separated the pair of them so they couldn't get to one another. What are you doing? Selipa shouted. Let me at her! She killed my mate! She was trying to wrangle her way out of Toma's grip, but it was useless, and Bardock was not moved at that revelation. Please, you really think that Napa cared about you? Trust me, I know when a guy is head over heels for someone. He looked down at Gine, who had buried her face in his chest, weeping with uncontrollable anguish. But that? Nah. He was using you. Selipa grimaced at the thought that her, could have been tricked. That's not true. You're just saying that to clear her name. Shut up. Napa was here to keep an eye on all of us. You know that. All because of you. The rest of the group rounded on Selipa. Was this true? What do you mean? She said with genuine apprehension. I didn't say anything! Bardock motioned to the scouter. You didn't have to. What have I told you lot about spilling your guts out on those things? You must have said something that got to Napa's attention, and he was getting close to you and finding out more. He knew you'd talk. Scream like a space canary. The group felt very sheepish after that. He had told them a lot about not spilling your guts out on the scouters, but even Selipa, she'd almost gotten them in big trouble. That shut her up. Napa's body? This was a way worse matter, almost confirming that what the higher-ups had suspected about Bardock might have been accurate. There might have been an uprising going down. What would happen to them? What are we going to do, Bardock? Said Gine in between sobs. Bardock contemplated their lot for just a moment. Okay, first of all, first planet we find, we get our scouters modded so we can talk amongst ourselves without interruption. So we can actually converse in confidence so this doesn't happen again. They then looked down at Napa's motionless body. As for this guy, well, he died in battle. These worlds are barely charted, so nobody knows for sure what's around here. And thanks to the limited scouter reception, we can make this work. That is our story. Napa got careless and, well, that. Got it. The group nodded, without question. Even Selipa nodded somberly. She desperately wanted to take her anger out on Gine right now, but the reality was starting to set in for her. Napa, she felt it to be true, but denied it. Hadn't wanted her for her. She was the weak link in the chain now, in this group, and had figuratively, literally, been pumped for information. She couldn't recall what she had said to him over the months that they had been flirty with one another. It was all just a blur, but hopefully it was minimal and wouldn't end up having the group torn apart. It was decided they would report back the news and stick to their concrete alibi. Gine was told to calm down and take some time off when they got back to base, and maybe not train for a while, not to arouse any further suspicion. Gine complied with this. Quite frankly, a lot of her drive to train had been put out because of her killing Napa. Fortunately, the alibi worked. Napa had a reputation for being a little impulsive when it came to things, especially new stuff. He wanted to get stuck in with those kinds of missions without really thinking things through, because even though Saiyans like to battle, they did have to have a battle plan and figure out what the most effective way to get about things was. So the fact that he tried to fight a tribe of savages without properly researching them or asking anyone for help, figuring out what their culture and fighting techniques were to try and get the jump on them beforehand, well, that's their Napa. The elites thanked Bardock for bringing back his body for burial. Not a lot of Saiyans would have been that considerate. It was a decent act. Good sport. No, it's only fair. He died under my watch. We've grown to respect the guy and his gusto. Bardock saying this through gritted teeth, but the hoity-toity lot, oh, they lapped this up. The only thing that could have ratted them out now were the scouters, but the data from them had indeed been corrupted and was broken up so badly from the distance and outages when they transmitted back to the base that it was practically impossible to properly piece together what exactly had happened and in what order. The closest thing that they could get were regular shrieks and sobs, Napa on the floor for some reason, but that could have been them discovering his body after those savages attacked him. Then a power surge from Gine's scouter, which was thankfully brushed aside on the account of them knowing that she was a bit more emotional than the average Saiyan. It was dubbed a mere quirk of hers rather than her lashing out against Napa and killing him. Bardock then breathed a huge sigh of relief after that. Not only had they gotten away with this turn of events, but their team had remained fully intact. As for Gine, she was utterly shaken up by this entire scenario. She excused herself from the squad for a while, to spend time ensuring that Raditz had indeed a smooth transition to fully being out of the nursing capsule, though that taking a very interesting fascination with beetles for some strange reason. Luckily, this had been a very effective way of soothing Gine's mind. Being around Raditz was comforting, and as the weeks passed, with clearly no repercussions to be had concerning Napa's demise, she gradually settled herself into a slightly, let's just say, more domesticated way of life. That being said though, she didn't spend this time entirely in the kitchen or looking after Raditz. No, Bardock had actually noted that she had been starting to train the lad up as best she could. Bardock was curious with why she was doing this with their son. Well, isn't it obvious, Bardock? I don't want Raditz to suffer the indignation of being judged like I had. I don't want people assuming that he's a weakling just because of his bloodline, because of me, that he was born from me. If I'm ever going to be ready to work with you again, I need to do this. I need to prove to myself and to others that my family is not something to be ridiculed or mocked. Raditz will grow up to be a strong boy. And who knows, maybe he might be so worthy that he'll be the right-hand man to Prince Vegeta one day. Bardock recalled that the king had indeed sired a boy lately, his power already from birth being quite immense. He smiled. That's a good attitude. Yeah, take some more time off. When you feel ready to go, let me know, okay? Gine nodded, appreciating the patience that Bardock had been exhibiting. From there, Bardock kept a low profile. He trained very little relative to his outings with Gine, and that meant the spotlight was slowly moving away from his direction. The king bored. He was more interested in his son, growing up to be an immensely strong king. And of course, the whole Broly incident. Then came an opportunity for Gine to test the water somewhat. Bardock had been requested to participate in a mission straight from Frieza himself via the Heeters and their commission, from a planet called Cereal. This wasn't going to be something with his regular squad. It was for those with power levels of about 7,000 or higher, being called up, since the Cerealians were very tricky blighters and any lower class Saiyans would most likely end up dead, meeting a very gruesome end at that. This was for the real high flyers, even some of the elites were getting stuck in. Bardock had been summoned, but he elected for Gine to be his assistant. Her power wasn't above 7,000, but she was strong enough to perform more recon tasks outside of the front line. Each soldier who took up the call could take one if they wanted to, but most chose not to. They didn't want to think about it, they just wanted to get stuck in for the glory for themselves, but Bardock did. Gine wasn't sure about this, but she agreed only if she wasn't asked to kill anyone. Bardock smiled. Don't worry, I know the drill, but you can at least help with the clear-up, and watch my back, alright? She nodded, she could cope with that. Wait, what about Raditz? What do we do with him? Bardock thought about this for a moment. I'll get League to look after him. He owes me one. Gine wasn't sure about League, but Bardock trusted him, and so she went along with the idea. League, though, he'd been getting excited to go to Planet Cereal. He wasn't thrilled with instead being sidelined looking after this kid, but he did feel a little better when he actually noticed that Raditz was quite tough for a youngling. Perhaps he might be somebody to pay attention to later on. We fast forward to the action on Planet Cereal, and the mission goes by like it does in the original, with the Cerealians being utterly decimated. Even when their moon was destroyed, stopping the Great Apes. You know, the whole adage of, I can still hit you really hard without my giant monkey form. But Gine hadn't participated in that, the Great Ape Surge, since she really wasn't supposed to be on the front line. She instead tended to the wounded and ensured they got off the planet and headed back to Freezer Planet 79 for further recovery. When it was clear that the mission was coming to an end though, she got back in touch with Bardock via their modified scouters. He agreed for her to meet up with him in the town, and they went about checking for any survivors. They sure enough did find them, in a chapel, where two Cerealians were cowering with fear, especially when they saw the sight of Bardock and Gine. The older one, clearly the mother of the child, stood up and attempted to defend the pair of them, but Gine calmed her down and ensured them that they wouldn't kill them. She looked at Bardock with a look of, "Right, Bardock?" To which he just rolled his eyes and sighed. "Fine, they're not a threat anyway. It's probably best you two don't stick around here though. Got anywhere you can go and crash?" The pair weren't really keen in talking to them, but Gine tried it anyway, picking up on her scouter a life sign of fair ways into the mountains. Maybe that might be a kindred spirit. "We'll take you to the other survivor we can see, and then leave you alone, alright?" she said with a softer tone than Bardock could ever muster. They indeed were the last two Cerealians in existence. With the other Saiyans having already left to return to base, and their scouters modified to avoid suspicion and where they exactly were located, Bardock and Gine guided the two to the mountains and to the remaining life sign. A green alien greeted them. Well, I say greet, more like, threatened them. "Get away from them! Now!" shouted the old thing. Huh? What's a Namekian doing here? Thought Bardock. But then the Namekian attacked, and that went out the window. But Gine quickly was able to subdue them. Less harshly than Bardock would have done. Eventually, the Namekian backed down, known as Monito, then allowed them inside after seeing that they were in the company of two Cerealians. They were not actually about to take his life. Clearly they can't be all that bad if they spared these two. Saiyans weren't known for doing that. In any case, Bardock told these three to lay low as Frieza was fast approaching the planet to check on the aftermath.
"How can we ever repay you?"
asked Monito. "You don't have to do anything. I only did this to spare the kid any further trauma." Muesli then used this moment to speak up. "And the others didn't count? What makes us so special?" Gine turned to them. "Not all Saiyans are heartless killers, you know. Bardock and I couldn't do that. At least not in these forms. I must admit, the grade 8 versions of us aren't the most graceful or elegant out there." Bardock looked a little sour at that, but that did elicit a slight chuckle from Muesli. Just a small smile. But that humour faded when Bardock could detect some people approaching. Him telling the others, including Gine, to be quiet and hide. Bardock spotted the Heeters, talking about their scheme to scam the new buyers of this planet, the Shigarians, and betray Frieza in the future. The Saiyan very keen to record and document this on his scouter for later. If he wanted to be in the good books of the Saiyans and the others, this would be a good ticket. But then Granola woke up and shouted, "Saiyan!" before being knocked out when he spotted Gine sat next to him. This of course alerts the Heeters, and of course brings them over to Monito's house to investigate, Gine taking cover in case she drew suspicion. Monito then offering her his own cloak.
"Hush now. I'll be quiet. This will be over quickly."
Bardock disguises himself with a cloak that he had found just in time, claiming that he found those fools and was about to kill them, these last two Cerealians. Elec then tells him to do the job already and go, but Bardock claims that the Namekian could be useful, which doesn't interest the likes of the Heeters at all, and he proceeds Elec to aim his blaster at the figure of Muesli. He takes aim and fires. That is until Gine shows up and deflects the blast, her cloak singeing from the ricochet on her armor beneath. "Get down!" she shouted and muesli grabbed Granola and made a run for it, hunkering down a distance away. Gine and Alexei's met. That was low, and she wouldn't abide by that. But that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now, as we end Act 1.